Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We will be making a start shortly, just going to go through some sort of housekeeping with regards to GoToWebinar. On your GoToWebinar panel, you have a questions tab. And please, we encourage that you input as many questions that you may have throughout the webinar as well. But also for the purpose of this webinar today, we're going to try and keep it a bit more informal, if you like. And if people would like to come off mute, we're going to hold back a section at the end where people will be able to come off mute and sort of ask their questions verbally as opposed to typing them in the questions bar. So, you've got a couple options there. You can either type it in the questions tab, or if you raise your hand on the panel, we can then invite you on to ask your question to the people that's in attendance today. So just moving it on. This is the Construction and BSE T-level webinar. So we're just going to give you a quick update as to where we are. But again, more of the focus on this webinar is to invite you to pose and ask as many questions as possible to the panel that we have on today. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the bar or raise your hand and we can come to you towards the end of the presentation and you can ask your questions live. Okay. So looking just a quick agenda for today, we're going to do sort of an introduction, just touch on COVID-19 because ultimately it's where we are at the minute. Look at the milestones, what progress we've made to date, then go through some sort of key construction and BSE updates. And the panel and presenters today also have a couple of questions to pose as well, just by way of gaining some thought around a couple of questions they have. Then we have Celine with us, who's going to talk about our new and exciting employee industry board and how you can work with us at City and Guilds through the T-level development and validation. Then we've got a really important part with regards to support and guidance and one of our key partners, which is Hodder Education. I want to support with T-level delivery, and we have a little bit of an update from them as well. And then just to sort of finish it off, there's a slide on how you can connect with us further through social media, etc. And then to finish it off, as we mentioned earlier, we will have a Q&A session, whether it's typing your questions in the questions tab or raising your hand, and we can bring you off mute. So just by way of some introductions, my name is Jason Howe. I'm a technical advisor for City and Guilds, and I work within the construction portfolio. I also have my colleague Rob Malander. He is a technical advisor also, and he is involved in the BSE portfolio. We have Salim Bizram, who is our industry manager and lead industry manager as well, and he looks after BSE, and that is his portfolio. And also we have a colleague, Michael Scarrott, who is a product specialist from EAL. Unfortunately, Michael isn't able to attend with us at the minute, but Michael is also involved in the T-level project with City and Guilds with regards to the partnership between City and Guilds and EAL also. So just to sort of touch on COVID-19, because it's the world we've lived in for the past 4 or 5 months, if you like, seem to know no different at the minute. But unprecedented, these are extraordinary times that we are currently living in. And in order to support our centres, our colleagues nationwide, we are trying to encourage people to stay in touch with our website. Visit our website constantly because it is updated daily for key information regarding COVID-19 in our portfolios, NVQs, technicals, VRQs, etc. So please keep referring to the website. Ultimately, if you have any COVID-19 questions specific, you can email product.cs@cityandguilds.com as well. Okay, so looking at how far we've come so far, we submitted back in April our Milestone 1, which was our first draft submission. And we had loads of interaction and engagement with providers and employers to support with that process. Moving on a couple of months, we have now submitted our second milestone. Actually, we have just received some feedback from IFA regarding Milestone 2. And again, a big thank you to all of our providers and employers and industry representatives that supported us with that process. And currently, the people on the panel today, along with our development team, we've been in the midst of working towards Milestone 3, putting the feedback from our employees, providers and IFA into actions to try and come up with a fantastic product with regards to our T-level qualifications and our assessments as well. And again, we're working towards that milestone. ready for submission in August. Just moving it on a little bit, I would like to introduce Rob Malander, who's the technical advisor for BSE, and Rob's going to take you through the next set of slides.
Afternoon, everyone. So firstly, we're going to look at the technical qualification structure for the construction on site. As you can see there in the red box, the construction guys have got a core component, which is the generic stuff which covers a lot of the on-site administration side of things, and that is assessed by an external exam and an employer set project. So there's a lot of stuff around legislation and preparation and how to conduct yourself on site and that sort of stuff. We have had some feedback on some of that, which we're going to discuss with you later, as well as we've had some feedback on the employer set project as well for building services, which we're going to try and keep you up to date on. And again, hopefully get you involved in any future feedback sessions we're going to be running to keep things processing in the right direction. So once they've done the core component, they might be teaching some of the specialism alongside the core component, but then they're going to progress onto one of the 4 occupational specialisms you can see on screen there: carpentry and joinery, plastering, bricklaying, painting and decorating. Again, we've been taking feedback this week. Jason's been running some validation sessions for construction. We're going to give you a brief update on them. And then I've been running validation sessions for BSE, which is going to be assessed by the synoptic assignment for the occupational specialisms. We'll assess that at the end. So you've got one of 4 choices there for construction. So moving on to building services. We've got a building services core now, which looks slightly different to this slide. So this slide is how things used to look in building services. It was 2 separate cores. We had a construction core content, and then we had our own little add-on, if you like, a BSE core component. As you'll see on the next slide, they're merged now. But initially, this was a structure for BSE. So we got to choose 2 of the listed occupational specialisms on this slide initially, whereas things have progressed through the validation meetings, etc. I'm not going to read through those occupational specialisms because it's now changed. Obviously, it was still assessed by synoptic assignment, but the learner could choose any 2. From feedback from validation meetings, that's now changed. So if we go to the next slide, I'll try and give you a brief overview. Some of the people may have seen these slides before, but we're going to try and move on to what's been happening at the validation meetings, etc. But just a reminder on the new structure. We have now got some standalone specialisms. These still could change slightly. We are still taking feedback, and that's what the validation meetings are. So the validation meetings are, we're getting basically for each specialism and the core, etc. We're getting employers and providers on Teams meetings, and we're going through the content to see whether it's now fit for purpose, basically. We're asking some key questions around that. So we've run validation meetings on the standalone specialisms. So we've got gas engineering, electrotech engineering, we've got electrical and electronic equipment and protection systems. They're now standalone. So if you're doing a T level, you will only choose one of those occupational specialisms, and that will be assessed by a synoptic assignment. So we also got some paired specialisms, which is on the next slide. So these are now mandatory pairings. So we've got plumbing and heating engineering, which covers a lot of the stuff in line with the plumbing and domestic heating standard, really. That's been brought up to speed to the plumbing and heating standard content. We've got heating engineering and ventilation. So that's the same heating engineering unit which is paired with plumbing, but contextualized slightly to the more commercial side of things. That then sits with ventilation as a pairing. And we've got refrigeration engineering and air conditioning engineering. That's a natural pairing, which, there's a lot of overlap in a lot of these pairings. So it's going to reduce the time for delivering down. A lot of the feedback from the validation meetings is it will be more deliverable if the pairings are more suitable. So before, it was bit random. You know, you could have perhaps chose refrigeration engineering and electrical, or air conditioning engineering and plumbing. Maybe not so aligned, not a lot of overlap in delivery, and it were really stretching the guided learning hours and the contextualization of the program. So I'll run through what we've been doing, a little bit of validation meetings this time. We've got a lot of feedback on the core. So we've now got the BSE core, which basically feedback has been, you know, it's quite high level. There's a lot of level 4 progression stuff in there as well, which we need to maybe tailor down a little bit to some of the more, if you like, trade areas rather than just leading up to a higher education element of the program. And we've had some very good feedback on the specialisms. So we've had some very productive feedback, some technical content we're going to tweak. Some of the generic feedback we've had is probably around the commissioning, that some of the commissioning side of things, they thought it was taking things a little bit too far for this level of learner. It should be more an awareness of how to commission and what are some of the processes they will be carrying out, rather than actually being able to commission systems, basically. That was one of the key trends which came out of the validation meetings. As well as that, the paperwork and flow and things like that have had some really good feedback. In some of the ventilation content, we've had some key things, what, you know, like around fire safety, which we need to get included. And for some of the BSE core, we've had feedback around the employer set project, and we may be looking to include some of the more generic things you would expect to be in a trade specialism core. So preparing building fabric, use of tools and equipment. There's a discussion going on at the moment that's lacking at the moment. You might think it would be in there, but it's not. It's not actually in the core at the moment. So that's the sort of thing we've been doing around the building services validation meetings. We've had a lot of good employer response, and we've had a lot of good provider response. And as we're going to be asking in future slides, you know, any further sessions, you're more than welcome to come and get involved on that. The more key people, stakeholders we can get involved in those sessions, the more it will benefit us and get a fit for purpose product out there. Jason, I don't know if you're around back and just give a bit of an overview of what you've been doing in construction.
Yes, mate. Yeah, so construction, as you know, we've got the 4 disciplines: carpentry, joinery, brick, plaster, and paint and decorating, along with the core as well. Again, we've had similar validation sessions, similar to what Rob has been running when we conducted the majority of those last week, with some more sessions planned for this week as well. But a couple of the key areas that are coming out of there is this discussion around sort of carpentry and joinery and whether they sit together as one trade. Now, historically, you know, we may argue yes, when it used to be the old craft, advanced craft, etc., sort of the 70s and 80s maybe. But as things developed through the sort of 90s, the world of MVQs, etc., the two industries become quite divided with regards to carpentry and joinery, and ultimately the skill set was divided as well, and the new technologies and machinery and equipment that was involved in mainly sort of bench joinery or architectural joinery as we now know it. And I was just sort of curious to get a little bit of feedback from people in attendance today. If we have any carpenters and joiners on today's webinar, just put it in the questions tab. Do you think carpentry and joinery is 2 separate disciplines when you're looking at the required skill set, the knowledge, the use of the equipment and machinery, etc., or do you think that they should be combined as one trade discipline or occupational specialism, as they're now known with regards to T levels? So, you know, we had some very valuable feedback for and against that argument last week, and I was just sort of curious to put it out there to the people in attendance today, what their sort of feelings and feedback around that are as well. And ultimately, you know, if you don't have time to put it in the questions tab today and you want to respond later on, these slides will go out, and ultimately my email address is on there. Please feel free to sort of ping me an email with your feedback and your thoughts and feelings around that as well. So I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Cheers, Rob.
Okay, I think we're going to progress now, and Salim's going to just run through a couple of slides on working with others in construction and building services engineering, and how you can get involved in some of the things we're looking at with the T-level project.
Cheers, Rob. Thanks, Jason. So yeah, so this slide just kind of looks back on what Jason was talking about. So we are almost milestone 3 now. So we have submitted milestone 1 and milestone 2, and obviously I can see there are a number of people here on the webinar today that have already added valuable input, certainly from a provider perspective in terms of what IFATE are looking for. So I think what we're trying to do now is to continue and build on the validation for milestone 3, and this final kind of milestone that we need to get validated from IFATE is going to be critical around the final kind of jigsaw piece in what that TQ actually looks like. So obviously Rob and Jason have been both hosting some sessions over the past few weeks around the specific occupational specialisms, what they look like, are they deliverable, what the size is, does it have the right technical content? So all of that information and all of that feedback that you've already provided for us is going to be validated throughout that whole of that milestone, and we'll almost get that rubber stamp right towards the end. So if you haven't already, there is an email on this slide, and obviously these slides will also be given to you at the end of the webinar via email as well. So it's around making sure that you are, or you can engage with us to ensure that what you see in terms of a TQ, in terms of that final qualification, it actually delivers on what we've actually promised. So next slide, please, Jason. So this kind of leads on to what we're actually creating at the moment. So we've basically got together with some employers. We've reached out to a number of employers across the country. So these are micro SMEs, some SMEs, as well as a few larger employers across both on-site construction as well as building services engineering. So, employers from the world of refrigeration and air conditioning, employers and representatives from BSE, for instance, that represent the heating and ventilation industries, as well as the larger industries like plumbing and electrotechnical. So the idea is we've putting together a number of employers to come together virtually, obviously at this moment in time, to validate milestone 3. So the idea is in August, we will host our first validation panel, and that panel of employers will be given some material, some TQ, some material that our development team will have put together, and they will obviously have already been involved throughout this whole process. But the material that they will be given at that specific time in July, towards the end of July, will be almost to look through it and then come to an agreement or raise any issues that they do have during that virtual validation meeting that we'll be hosting in August time. So really, this is just a call out to everyone on this call at the moment. Obviously, today's webinar is provider focused, and I know we've been working with a number of providers who have a number of network links for their own employer engagement, albeit if it's through CPD or mainly through their apprenticeship programs. So this is really a call to the individuals on the webinar today to see whether or not they can connect with their employer groups that they're engaging with currently and see whether or not they actually want to come on with us on this journey for this employer industry board. And this employer industry board will initially be looking at T-levels, but obviously going forward, it's more around industry practices, it's more around specific industry needs. There might be some requirements within the construction industry, new technologies, looking at apprenticeship standards, and that ultimately is what that employer industry board is going to be discussing, as well as technical education going forward. So again, on this slide, you can see that Jason's contact details are on there, myself and Michael's details are on there as well. So it's almost a call to action to see whether or not you could also reach out to your employer industry networks, and if you can connect us with those as well. And then obviously we can then get in touch with those individuals and see whether or not they wish to join the group. And this slide just basically just highlights, it's just a very kind of high level, these are some of their logos, and these are just some of the organizations that have already agreed to join the board. But these are also some of the individuals that have actually engaged with us throughout the whole of this development process for the technical qualification. So they've validated content for us at Milestone 1 as well as Milestone 2. They've had individual team sessions with Jason and Rob when they've hosted those sessions, and have engaged with our development team as well. So great thank you to some of these individuals, and likewise, again, some of the training providers that are on this call. We can't thank you enough to in terms of engaging with us and helping us along with creating this technical qualification.
Thanks for that, Salim. We're going to move things on slightly now, and this is looking at how we, or how us and our partners, can support our 2021 and ultimately our future providers of the T-level qualifications. So just by way of sort of what is coming up, the top webinar on the top of the slide there, obviously that is today's webinar, but also we have some 12-month countdown webinars planned for September. Ultimately, we'll have a lot stronger content to share with you. The TQ will have gone and would have been submitted, and hopefully we'll have feedback by then as well. But ultimately, these webinars will be about having discussions with centres and supporting centres around how they're going to structure and plan in these T levels within their curriculums as well. So, you know, those will be some crucial webinars coming up in September, and they'll continue, as it says, 12-month countdown. Whether they're monthly or bi-monthly, who knows? It really depends what our centres require with regards to support. But ultimately, you know, we are here to support you through every step of the process. So keep an eye out for those webinars and register for them as well. Ultimately, if you're going to be delivering the T levels. Okay, so we just wanted to sort of pose some questions and open a discussion. Ultimately, like I mentioned at the beginning, you know, you can come off mute later on, or please put it in the questions tab. You know, what can we help you with? So, you know, your questions and your comments will hopefully also be able to support the countdown webinars and future webinars as well, so we can start to tailor what our support to suit your needs, and what support do you want now and in the future from City and Guilds. And it could be anything with, and these are just some prompts really: sidecards, progression opportunities, apprenticeships and higher education, level of learner profiles, where do adult learners sit, employer engagement and work experience, maybe delivery preparation and feedback. And then again, just to reiterate, what support you want from City and Guilds initially and in the future as well. And ultimately as well, you know, comments, whether it's in the chat or questions box on any of these. Ultimately, if it's comments around sidecards and progression opportunities, myself, Salim and Rob, we are in constant dialogue with IFIT and DFE and the regulatory bodies around the discussions around those two elements, ultimately sidecards in getting learners on the site and work experience, and then ultimately what progression looks like as well. So that dialogue is ongoing. But again, if you have any questions, please put them in the questions tab, or ultimately raise your hand and we will take you off mute towards the end. These are just some sort of supportive links. At the top is just a short introduction to T-levels, and it's just a quick webinar if you're brand new to T-levels, because we've only sort of just touched on the structure on the beginning of this webinar. If you wanted a bit more detail on how we put together, there is a webinar at the top there. And then ultimately the bottom two links, or the middle two links, sorry, are the technical content. So that's the qualifications and where we are at the minute with our draft 2, version 2, for BSE and construction on site. And then ultimately we also have a link to a survey if you do get a chance to have a look at the TQ content via those links, please, you know, if you've got any feedback or anything you want to add, or let us know, any comments, you know, you can do the survey and we monitor that regularly so we can obtain that feedback and put it back to our development team. Or ultimately, you can email us via the email addresses at the beginning of this presentation. This is the new part, the new update with regards to our partners at Hodder Education. So some of you may or may not be aware that Hodder Education currently support with regards to the creation and development and distribution of the new City and Guilds textbooks. The ones on screen are just construction, but they also do BSE as well, plumbing, electrical, etc. And Hodder are very, very keen to be involved in how they can support further with regards to the T-level delivery. So ultimately, they are basically want to know what can they do, what can they produce, what type of textbooks would people like to see with regards to T-levels, and what can they produce that will ultimately supplement and complement the current suite of textbooks they currently have, and whether that's a textbook that purely focuses on the core, and those are the areas where people are going to need significant upskilling. Then there is a survey link on the slide there. Again, once these are sent out, please spend 5-10 minutes completing that survey and giving us that valuable feedback. Because ultimately, as well, if we don't ask them, then we're not going to get. So our partners at Hodder are very, very keen to support this initiative and project. So please have a look at the survey and let them know what you'd like as a centre in order to support the delivery of T-levels. Okay, and if you want like any of the Hodder Education textbooks, the City and Guilds textbooks, we have a contact there, which is thomas.stotter@hoddereducation.co.uk. And please feel free to give Thomas a quick email if you'd like sort of samples, or you'd like to purchase some of these books as well. So just a sort of last sort of call before we sort of go to questions. You can connect with us. We do have a construction LinkedIn group. Feel free to follow the link and join us on the group. Ultimately, both trade areas, construction and BSE, are live on Twitter, and those are the Twitter handles. Again, please feel free to give us a follow. We do put updates on there regular way. And then ultimately, you can email us as well, construction@cityandguilds.com or buildingservices@cityandguilds.com. Or probably the best way of getting key updates is by registering for email alerts and email updates. And that is on the bottom of every City and Guilds webpage. You can put your details in, select which products that pertain to your areas of need, and get updates accordingly. Or if you go to our T-levels page on our website, we've built within the page is an area where you can register your details for updates just pertaining to T-levels. So there is many avenues which you can register to get updates from City and Guilds. And that brings us to a close. I don't know if there's anything Rob and Salim want to add, but ultimately we'd like to sort of open it up to the attendees now. And please feel free to ask. Put your hand up if you want to come off mute and ask any questions, but please just pose any questions you like, and we will try our best to answer them. I have had a response from Gary around the carpentry and joinery, so thank you for that, Gary. Appreciate that feedback. And again, any feedback with regards to what myself and Rob have mentioned throughout the webinar today will be greatly appreciated. So if anybody has any questions at all, please raise your hand. I can take you off mute or put it into the questions box. We've got one hand raised. Gary, I am just about to unmute you now. You should be able to speak, Gary. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Hope you're all well. Yeah, just going back to the carpentry and joinery thing.
Yes.
When they're covering the thing of architectural joinery, I think it would be a good idea that they do touch on construction as well, as regards, the fitting of windows rather than just the making of windows. And then over on the carpentry and joinery side, I do think that there should be some form of joinery mixed in with the carpentry, because you do get that crossover still on site to some degree, but I think it should be construction weighted with a touch on the joinery side, if that makes sense. It
does. Thank you very much. I think yes, and to be honest, that does mirror. I think the key skills, the fundamentals and the awareness and understanding is critical as well. I think a lot of the concerns were trying to get a learner to both level 3 site carpentry and bench joinery in the time frame of, say, getting a bricklayer up to level 3, and whether it was fair that a learner will be able to, or whether a learner could get to both a level 3 standard in carpentry and joinery. And one of the comments we had was from a provider who said, well, it's like asking somebody to be a level 3 bricklayer and a plasterer. Ultimately, they still use fundamental trowel skills, but the disciplines are very, very different. So, and I kind of got where he was coming from with regards to carpentry and joinery. And I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. It's just we could talk about this all day and always have a difference of opinion. So it was just sort of keen to get people's feedback. So thank you very much for that. That's very much appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, or does anybody else want to come off mute?
Yeah, we can pause for a couple of minutes, see if everybody has got any more questions. And as well as that, if you want to type any comments in that questions tab, is there anything which would help you out with curriculum planning? As Jason said earlier, we are running these webinars in September, the focus being, so by then we should have the outline content finalized, basically. That's when we should have submitted. So we should be able to share with you then, course handbooks, things like that. We can put on sessions to support Delivery Network. Jason and myself, that's going to be part of our role to basically try and support centres and roll these qualifications out. So, if there is support sessions you think you need, or if there's documentation, curriculum plans, whatever it may be, schemes of work, if there's things you might need support with and what you'd like included in those sessions, by all means, again, give us a shout out, raise your hand, type it in the questions tab, and we can pick that up. What we don't want to do is keep running through PowerPoint presentations if they're not beneficial. We want to make these sessions more interactive and give you support in delivering T levels as well.
Sorry if the slides have been flickering there, just a couple of technical issues, which I think a lot of the country are having at the minute, so I do apologise for that. We have had another question. So come September, and with a detailed spec available, support in all areas mentioned would be great. If I could just ask you to elaborate on that, that would be fantastic. So what areas in specific would you like support in? Is it sort of more learning resource support, or more support maybe as curriculum managers with regards to the planning and implementation of a T-level curriculum? Or is it around sort of tutors wanting more support with resources, etc.? Is it more webinars? Is it visits hopefully from myself and Rob? Hopefully you can come in your centres and work with yourselves and your staff. If you could be a bit more specific with that support, with what you were mentioning with regards to support, Gary, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think before we broke up, I think the main points that the tutors all brought up was the planning, implementation and tutor support around resources was the main things that were coming out of the college. Right,
okay, that's great, thank you for that. We've had one from Jane. Will be useful to look at the assessment and the project and exams. Jane, if you'd like to be involved and you've got staff who can help us at the minute, we're currently, as we've mentioned, we're validating not just the TQ content, but we're also currently validating the practical assessments and the employee set project. So if you or your staff would like to support with that process, please do get in touch with us. They're not currently live on the website. Ultimately, we've got to be careful with regards to what we put on the website. TQ content is fine, but with regards to assessments, we've got to be very careful to eliminate any possibilities of predictability, etc. But if you have staff who can support us, then please, if they can email qual development, QUAL development at cityandguilds.com, and make it for the attention of Lisa or Carly, then we can pick that up accordingly. Or ultimately, please feel free to just email any one of us and we'll pass them the details on. So please feel free, Jane, to get in touch. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Jane's just put on, they've got staff who can support, and that's the sort of thing we need. I mean, we've just had a couple of feedback sessions on the employer set project for the BSE core, and you know, just to get that input, different mindset from different delivery network stakeholders, just helps us shape things into a more valuable product, really, you know, and gets the assessments looking how they can be delivered. Obviously, we try and support as much as possible, but to have that extra input from the people who are actually going to be rolling these assessments out is crucial. Okay, it looks like questions are drying up. If there is any more questions, just give us a shout, put your hand up, or type them in the box now. We'll give it another minute or so, and if there's nothing else, we'll close the meeting. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, just for me as well, just to say thank you for your attendance today, and we'll be sharing the presentation with you all. But again, please use the email addresses that you receive on the deck of slides if you would like to get involved. Really appreciate your time again today. Thank you.
With regards to sort of bringing the webinar to a close, I think all the questions have dried up. Hopefully we've been able to answer them sufficiently. But again, just not so much a plea, but just to ask you guys with regards to not just getting involved in the TQ development and validation, but also, as Salim mentioned, the Employer and Industry Board. You know, it's really important that we have providers and employers on these panels, because ultimately then we can produce products that are meet industry needs and requirements, but also that are deliverable. And that's it, you know, picking on the key points that's important. And it could be regional topics and regional trends that we need to be capturing a bit more as well. So, you know, we can only capture that information when we have a wide range of people supporting the validation and development of our products. So again, you know, a bit of a plea to get in touch with us if you have any employers. Ultimately, as a centre or provider, if you yourself would like to be involved, fantastic, or you have staff, etc. Please let us know, and we can have you involved in the process as well, in shaping the qualifications of your future and shaping the qualifications of what industry and what your learners need in order to progress into the industries that we know and love as well. So thank you again for your attendance today. Really appreciate it. Please look out for the webinars that we have planned for September. We hope you have a fantastic summer, that you are staying safe and well, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. If there are no other questions, we will say thank you very much again, and we hope you stay safe and stay well. A quick question has just come in there. Will the employee set project be linked to the placements? Will there be regional differences linked to local resources? That's what we're trying to capture with regards to the assessments and with regards to the technical spec on the qualifications, regional differences and resources, etc. And to be honest, it was brought up in some of the validation sessions last week that I know in construction, especially around bricklaying, vernacular resources and materials, etc. So that's what we're trying to capture. So again, you know, if yourself or employers or providers that you know or staff can help us with that process, that will be fantastic. The employee set project isn't necessarily linked directly to the work experience or work placements, because that does sit in the program but outside of the qualification. So, but it will be linked to sort of that, to the learner's scenario and the way of life in industry. So the work placements will certainly help the completion of the employee set project. Rob, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
I think from the BSE side of things, the employer set project is going to be a generic employer set project, which will suit all job roles. It is assessing more of the core skills, and with it being level 3, they are researching things and they're looking at, you know, feeding back and analysing various things to do with construction. And it's improving a property at the moment. It's improving the efficiency and things like that of a property they're going to look at as the project. But again, the key I think there is, if you have got relevant staff or yourself would like to get involved, we are going to be running future meetings on that. The Milestone 3 is now September. We had a meeting actually with IFE Thursday last week to discuss that project and how we can improve it and things like that. And you can be involved in those type of sessions. You know, the more people we can get feedback from and get ideas from of how to make that work for learners and for centres to deliver, then obviously a better product it's going to be when complete. So there is a draft there you can feed back on. And if you'd like to, just drop us an email with the address on the slides and we can get you involved in that session. The next sessions will be timetabled shortly, and we've not got to finalize that till September, but you know, there's a good draft there at the moment. We'd like to get more or less complete, so over the next month or so there's time to change that, if you know what I mean. You can feedback, we can implement that feedback and make it a better product. So yeah, if you've got people or yourself would like to get involved, give us a shout. Okay, thanks everyone. I think, Jason, looks like questions have dried up, so would be a good chance to close the meeting, I think. Thanks again for your time, everybody. Cheers, stay safe, see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.